Andrew Sprague might be one of the most important young offensive tackle projections this season. 6'8", came to Michigan as a consistent 4-star from Rockhurst High School in Kansas City. Redshirt in 2024, made his first career start in the ReliaQuest Bowl against Alabama. Then won the right tackle job in 2025, starting all 12 games as a redshirt freshman. That alone matters. 12 Big Ten starts at right tackle. That young is a major scouting note, in my opinion. He earned honorable mention for all Big Ten, shared Offensive Player of the Week honors after the Nebraska road win, showed against Michigan State that the finished version he could look like, and he's still young. 17 hurries allowed, a rough Wisconsin game, run blocking that's still modest for a Michigan tackle, and a brief portal entry after the coaching change. Today we're breaking down Andrew Sprague, my current offensive tackle 7, why the long-term upside is real, and why the next 2 seasons could decide whether he becomes a high pick or plays in the NFL at all. Before we get into it, make sure you hit the follow button, like, subscribe, all that good stuff for the YouTube algorithm, because we're going to keep putting in this work. What's going on? Welcome back to Draft Yoda. I'm glad I'm back. My work took me out of this for a few minutes, so we're back, and we're trying to push hard to make sure we get to that 100 prospects before college football kicks off. Andrew Sprague, currently number 79 overall with an 8.72, offensive tackle number 7. And Sprague is not a finished product. He's not supposed to be at this point. It's a redshirt freshman starter in the Big Ten, but 6'8", real length, movement ability for his size. 12 starts already, 3 seasons eligibility left, and that's all exciting when you look at his evaluation. But the tape also reminds you that he's young. There's leak pressures, there's run game inconsistencies, there are games where the floor shows up, and there are reps when the length saves him before the technique wins cleanly. So he's not a finished NFL tackle today by any mark of this evaluation. He's a projection. And this is a projection for him. If he decided to come out this season, he'd be my number 79 currently in this potential draft class. He started his career in high school at Kansas City, Missouri. Played for Rockhurst High School. Became a major offensive tackle recruit and was a two-way player. Played offensive line, played defensive line. And I think that really helped him. It taught him, what kind of leverage it takes to win on both sides. Allowed him to understand how rushers attack, how hand placement happens, and how defensive linemen try to win. And at 6'8", offensive tackle, with a basketball background, is not just a fun note. He was a basketball letterman. At 6'8", you would expect him to be, especially in high school. But it tells you that he has some body control, some coordination, some movement ability, and some comfort operating within his frame. As a senior, Rockhurst had an 11-2 record and had a trip to the Class 6 state semifinals while he was there. That's pretty strong, It shows that, it showed that the 4-star wasn't just a projection. It showed that he had challenged himself against some stronger competition, especially in Class 6 in Missouri. There's some strong teams in that. And he was ranked in the top 120 nationally, committed to Michigan over Notre Dame and several other Power 4 programs. And it was a major offensive line recruitment. Michigan does not take offensive linemen casually. Notre Dame doesn't chase after offensive linemen casually. They're not one of these teams that sends out, 50 and just hoping to land 5. Michigan and Notre Dame are two teams that are very selective about the offensive linemen they take, and that's a serious boost to his draft grade, in my opinion. When I see something like that, it's very obvious to me they saw something they liked, so it makes me go and watch the tape a little bit harder. Redshirt in 2024, appeared in 4 games with limited snaps. It's pretty normal for a first year, especially for a young offensive lineman. You get in the building, you learn the system, you develop the body, you adjust to college strength, you adjust to the speed of the game, you figure out your footwork, you figure out the calls. His first career start did happen at the ReliaQuest Bowl against Alabama, and that's not a small first start. It's a real test. Alabama in a bowl game is not easy. Alabama at any point in the season is not an easy test. And to get that as your first start, that's definitely strong for you. 2025 started out, and he won the right tackle job. Started all 12 games. He didn't rotate. He didn't just start a few games because of injury. He won the job outright, and he kept it the entire season as a redshirt freshman. He logged over 700 offensive snaps. Earned honorable mention for all Big Ten. And that's a strong first season. Not perfect by any means, and we'll get into that, but it was a very strong first season. Off-season got interesting after Sharon Moore did all his fun stuff and Kyle Whittingham came in. Sprague briefly entered the transfer portal early in January. Then, after a few days, withdrew and decided he was going to stay with Michigan. And that's not something that raises a question mark for me, at least. Hey, it's a new coach. I got to see what else is there. I got to take this opportunity to see, am I going to fit in his scheme? Am I going to enjoy being coached by this coach? This is not who I came to get coached by. And that's something that I don't mark a player for. I know some NFL teams are going to ask about it, and some won't. Some are going to ask, what happened? Why did you enter? Why did you return? What changed? Some NFL teams just are going to say, oh, okay, cool, and kept it moving. First thing that's going to jump out to anyone when you start watching his tape is his length and his size. 6'8". It's going to be the first thing that jumps out to everybody. Dude's a massive guy, 6'8". When he gets his hands on speed rushers, the rep is over. He has the length to swallow rushers. And his length gives him a massive margin for error. There were several times where his technique wasn't there to keep him in front of a player, but because of his length and his size, he still was able to get the block. And that's good for a young and talented tackle to have that to fall back on, but the technique needs to catch up. And we'll get into that. The early starting experience is really something that I've got a pin in for him. 12 starts at right tackle as a redshirt freshman in the Big Ten is not normal. That's something that a lot of offensive tackles do not get. And it's a workload that is special to see at this young of an age. For Sprague to get it early, it means that he already has taken real snaps against real competition at a young age. And he's already had to deal with the failure, with the adjustments, and had to prepare like a starter from a very young age. Development does not happen in theory. It happens through reps. And to be able to start stacking big, meaningful reps this young is massive. The Nebraska game is a case in point. He shared Offensive Player of the Week honors after that win. And that's a major sign. Offensive tackles usually don't get that kind of recognition. And to do it on the road matters. Road environments test young tackles. Cadence is harder, communication's harder, the crowd can affect timing, defenses feed on momentum. And Sprague, to earn recognition after that game, tells you the staff saw real growth and real impact from him. The Michigan State game is another key piece. That was a game where the complete version kind of showed up for him. Clean protection, real run game movement, the kind of two-way performance you want to see from a tackle at Michigan. At Michigan, the run game expectation is very real. You have to move people. You have to fit the run scheme. You have to create lanes. You have to be physical. And the Michigan State game showed what it looks like when Sprague puts both pieces together, the pass protection and the run game. It's the tape that, I would point at if I was in his corner and say, this is the final version we need to get to where you can do this consistently. And that's the tape I would show potential scouts and potential NFL teams of, hey, when we get everything right, that right there is the kind of player you'll have. He does have 3 years of eligibility left. And that's time to add some strength, improve some footwork, clean up some hurries, time to grow in the run game, time to settle under the new staff, and time to turn flashes into a complete profile. I think if he decided to come out young and came out next year, he could. I think he would also do himself a favor. Now let me back this up. He could come out next year. If he has a perfect season, he could come out and he's going to wow prospect. He's going to wow scouts. He's going to wow NFL teams. The reason he's not higher is because he has to prove it this season, or he should come back and spend more time in college. It is becoming rarer for younger guys to come out simply because, I can make more money staying in college than I can going pro. And that is a thing. Some of the concerns I have, number one is the hurry total. 17 hurries allowed is it's a little much. I understand he's a freshman, so I'm not trying to put a lot on him. It was his first year starting, but it has to be mentioned. It doesn't kill the evaluation, but it has to be mentioned. Sprague's length saves a lot of his reps, but sometimes the feet are still catching up. Sometimes the pass set is not clean enough. Sometimes the pressure leaks late. And sometimes edge rushers stress him before he can fully get control. Again, that's normal for his age, but it doesn't make it irrelevant. The Wisconsin game showed his floor. It was pass protection and run blocking both struggled in that game. For a young tackle, that matters. You do not overreact to one bad game, but you study it. And if I was his coach, he would be studying the hell out of that game. It showed what happens when the timing's off. It showed what happens when the matchup is difficult. And it showed what still needed to be fixed. For Sprague, the Wisconsin tape tells you where the gap between the ceiling and the floor is. The ceiling is exciting, and the floor is not clean enough yet. The run blocking in particular, for a Michigan State tackle, the run blocking tape is modest. It matters because the job description at Michigan is different. You cannot just survive in pass pro. You have to move people. You have to create displacement. You have to help the offense control the line of scrimmage. Sprague has moments where he makes that happen. Michigan State tape showed that. But the Wisconsin tape also showed what happens when he doesn't do that. And the technique needs to catch up to the length. Sprague has shown he can survive on his size. And that can get you away with some of the reps, and, some smaller tackles wouldn't get that kind of grace. They can get you, you can be a little later with your hands and still make contact with this kind of size. But at the next level, the technique has to catch up. NFL edge rushers will test the chest. They will test the pad level. They will test the ability to redirect. They will attack inside with counters, and they will force him to win through timing, not just length. It's the comparison I can say is I've given him a tool to use. The question is, does he know how to use that tool properly? And does he have the technique to use it efficiently? That's where that is. 2026 is massive for Sprague. That's where the evaluation can really start to separate. The checklist pretty clear to me. Reduce the hurries, improve the run game, blocking. Play with more force. Turn the Michigan State flash into weekly tape. Handle the new coaching staff transition. Show better technique with your hands and feet. If he does that, this is going to climb, and he can come out early. If he doesn't, he needs to stay in school. It's as simple as that. Currently sitting at 8.72 out of 10, making him my number 79 overall, offensive tackle number 7. He's young, long, developmental right tackle, 6'8". Good movement for the frame, early Big Ten starting experience, the runway that gives him a lot more time to make it a lot more interesting of a prospect in the tackle group moving forward. Yes, he could come out this year, and this is where he would be. But unless he has just an outstanding season, I personally would tell him to stay. That's where he sits on my board currently. What do you think of Andrew Sprague? Is he one of the best young tackles that could come out this year? Should he be at the offensive tackle 7? How high could he climb if he has a great season this year? How much value do you put in a redshirt freshman tackle already having 12 games of experience in the Big Ten? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy the player evaluations, we're on our way to 100 before college football kicks off. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and follow along. As always, I am Draft Yoda, Bill Workman, your favorite draft nerd's favorite draft nerd, and we will catch you in the next one.